Captain Crow leaned back in his command chair, the ancient saurian metal creaking under his considerable weight. His scaled fingers tapped methodically against the armrest as he studied the holographic projection of Z-99, a derelict asteroid barely large enough to warrant a designation. The automated cargo relay station that had been carved into its heart had been abandoned for nearly 2 decades, a relic of the old shipping routes before the new quantum corridors had been established. "And you're absolutely certain the device is still there?" Crowl asked, his reptilian voice a deep rumble that resonated through the bridge of the Razor's Edge, a battle-scarred vessel that had served the infamous mercenary group Crowl's Reapers for over 15 standard years. The hooded figure on the communication screen, an anonymous representative of Omnicorp, shifted slightly, their features obscured by both technological and practical means. "Our intelligence is definitive, Captain. The quantum locator device was taken there by the thieves approximately 72 hours ago. As far as we can determine, they haven't left." Crowl's secondary eyelids blinked slowly, a sign of contemplation among his kind. "And the opposition?" "Minimal," the figure replied smoothly. "Our intelligence suggests a small group, likely common scavengers who stumbled upon something far beyond their understanding. The station's security systems are outdated and mostly non-functional. For a crew with your reputation, this should be a simple retrieval operation." Crowl's lips pulled back in what passed for a smile among saurians, revealing rows of serrated teeth. Nothing is ever simple when it comes to corporate retrievals. "The payment, 5 million universal credits. Half upon acceptance, half upon successful delivery of the QLD." Even Crowl couldn't suppress the slight widening of his eyes. 5 million was an astronomical sum for what sounded like a straightforward job. It either meant the device was extraordinarily valuable, or there was something the corporation wasn't telling him. In his experience, it was invariably the latter. Still, 5 million credits could buy a lot of things, including enough fuel and supplies to keep his crew operating independently for years, away from corporate entanglements. It could even buy them legitimate retirement, if any of them were capable of such a thing. "Send the contract. We'll review the terms and give you our answer within the hour." The figure nodded once before the communication terminated, leaving Crowl alone with his thoughts. Rourke, his second-in-command, entered the bridge silently, an impressive feat for a heavy combat android standing over 7 feet tall. Decades of battlefield modifications had transformed Rourke from a standard military unit into a walking arsenal, yet the android moved with a grace that belied its size and weight. "I take it we have a new contract." Rourke's synthesized voice was deliberately calibrated to sound mechanical, a tactical choice that often unsettled organic life forms. "Potentially, Omnicorp wants us to retrieve something called a quantum locator device from an abandoned relay station. 5 million credits." Rourke's optical sensors dimmed momentarily, the equivalent of a raised eyebrow. "That's an excessive amount for a simple retrieval." "My thoughts exactly," Crowl agreed, transferring the mission data to the command table. "Assemble the officers. I want a full strategic assessment before we commit." Within 20 minutes, the command room of the Razor's Edge was filled with Crowl's most trusted lieutenants, a diverse collection of the galaxy's most effective killers. Vex, a cephalon infiltration specialist whose 12 tentacle-like appendages could manipulate technology with unparalleled precision, hovered near the ceiling, her translucent body pulsing with bioluminescent patterns as she processed the information. Dratches, a hulking Ursan demolitions expert, growled low in his throat as he examined the station schematics, already identifying structural weaknesses and potential extraction points. Nyx, a Cerulean assassin whose gossamer wings and delicate features belied her lethal nature, studied the mission parameters with eyes that shifted through the color spectrum as she calculated probabilities. And Thorn, the newest addition to their team, a young Vexillian sharpshooter whose exoskeletal ridges still gleamed with the metallic sheen of youth. "The payment is substantial," Crowl began. "But as we all know, when corporations offer generous compensation, complications invariably follow. I want your assessments. Station layout is straightforward. Dratches rumbled, manipulating the holographic display to highlight various sections. Central power core, cargo processing bays, administrative sections, and docking facilities. Minimal defensive capabilities even when it was operational. Entry and extraction should be uncomplicated. What? About the opposition? Nix asked, her voice a melodic whisper. Crow brought up the intelligence file. According to Omnicorp, minimal resistance expected. Possibly common scavengers who stumbled upon this device. Vex's tentacles fluttered with skepticism. Omnicorp wouldn't pay 5 million credits for something common scavengers could acquire. There's more to this. Agreed, Crow acknowledged. Which is why I've had Zack dig deeper. He gestured toward the back of a room, where a diminutive figure sat hunched over a portable terminal. Zack, a Rithlian information broker whose species' natural affinity for data processing made them exceptional hackers, looked up from his work. His large, owl-like eyes blinked rapidly as neural patterns flickered across his pupils, a visual indication of his species' direct neural interface with technology. I've been mining fragmented data packets from Omnicorp's quantum relays, Zack explained, his voice soft and precise. Most of it is encrypted beyond my immediate capabilities, but I've managed to extract some useful information. He transmitted the data to the main display. The thieves aren't common scavengers, Zack continued. Based on the fragmented security protocols and the level of corporate alarm, I believe we're dealing with a small human special operations team. The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. The younger mercenaries exchanged confused glances, but the veterans, particularly Crow and Rourke, grew noticeably tense. Humans, Thorne scoffed, his mandibles clicking in amusement. Those soft-skinned bipeds without claws or natural armor. My research indicates they're physically inferior to most spacefaring species. Crow's tail slammed against the floor with enough force to silence the room. Your research is worthless, rookie. How many combat missions have you served alongside humans? Thorne's exoskeletal plates clicked nervously. None, Captain. Anyone else here fought with or against humans? Crow asked, his gaze sweeping the room. Only Rourke, Nix, and a few other veterans raised their hands or signaling appendages. Thought so, Crow muttered. He looked directly at Thorne and the other younger mercenaries. Let me educate you about Deathworlders. He brought up a galactic classification chart. Most spacefaring species evolved on worlds classified as Category 3 or 4. Environments with stable climates, predictable weather patterns, limited tectonic activity, and relatively benign native fauna. Crow highlighted Earth on the display. Humans come from a Category 12 world. Extreme temperature variations, catastrophic weather events, constant tectonic activity, and an evolutionary history of survival against apex predators at every stage of their development. Still, Thorne insisted, our technological advantages are meaningless. Rourke interrupted, the android's voice carrying the weight of experience. 7 standard years ago, I participated in a corporate security operation against a human research facility. We had 30 elite operatives, cutting-edge weaponry, and detailed floor plans. The android's optical sensors flickered with what might have been remembered fear. A team of 5 humans neutralized 27 of us without suffering a single casualty. They didn't just defeat us, they dismantled us. But how? Vex asked, her tentacles coiling tightly, a sign of distress among her kind. Adaptability, Nix whispered, her wings trembling slightly. Most species develop specialized survival strategies over millions of years. Humans develop the ability to create new strategies on the fly. They're not just physically adapted to survive adversity. Their minds evolved to seek it out and overcome it. Krell nodded grimly. Humans don't fight like other species. They don't follow predictable patterns or adhere to expected tactical doctrines. They improvise, they adapt, and they use their environment as a weapon. He turned back to the mission data. However, the payment is still 5 million credits, and our reputation demands we consider it. His gaze hardened. But we will approach this with extreme caution. Krell outlined a modified strategy, emphasizing stealth, overwhelming force, and contingency plans. The meeting concluded with a tense determination, the mercenaries preparing their equipment with unusual thoroughness. As the others filed out, Rourke remained behind with Krell. "You're taking this contract despite knowing we're facing humans," the android observed. Krell's scales shifted color slightly, a subtle indication of conflict. "Our reputation is built on completing impossible missions. If we refuse this one based on rumors and old stories, word will spread. And 5 million credits is persuasive," Rourke added. "That too," Krell admitted. He leaned closer to his mechanical second-in-command. "But we exercise extreme caution. Triple-check all systems, arm everyone with maximum firepower, and prepare. Emergency extraction protocols." Rourke's processors whirred softly as he assimilated the instructions. "Do you believe the rumors about humans? That they can predict enemy movements before they happen?" Krell's expression darkened. "I believe they're the most dangerous species in the galaxy precisely because everyone underestimates them." He checked his personal sidearm, a habit born of decades of combat. "We proceed as planned, but at the first sign that things are going sideways, we abort. No heroics, no salvage attempts. We cut our losses and run." "Understood, Captain." 12 hours later, the Razor's Edge hovered silently in the shadow of asteroid Z-99, its stealth systems engaged to mask their presence. The derelict station protruded from the asteroid's surface like a mechanical tumor, its external lights long dead, only the faintest energy signatures indicating any activity within. In the deployment bay, Krell addressed his assault team, 20 of his finest operatives equipped with the most advanced weapons and defensive systems credits could buy. Initial scan shows minimal energy signatures consistent with a small team and portable equipment, Krell explained, displaying the latest sensor readings. "We'll deploy in 3 teams. Vex will lead Alpha Team, infiltration specialists who will identify hostiles and the QLD's location without engagement." Vex's tentacles rippled in acknowledgement. "Rourke commands Beta Team, our heavy response unit that will move in once Alpha provides intelligence. I'll lead Gamma Team as our extraction specialists and backup." The mercenaries checked their equipment one final time before boarding the shuttle. As they approached the station's auxiliary docking port, Krell couldn't shake a growing unease. The operation was proceeding too smoothly. The station's automated defense systems hadn't activated, there were no proximity alarms, no signs of preparedness from the occupants. Either they were dealing with incompetent thieves, unlikely given Zach's intelligence, or something else was happening. Alpha Team deployed first, 6 infiltration specialists utilizing the most advanced cloaking technology available outside military installations. Vex led them through the auxiliary airlock, her natural camouflage abilities complementing the technological stealth systems. Proceeding through main corridor, Vex reported via the secure communication link. No signs of activity. Substantial dust accumulation. Footprints visible. Humanoid, consistent with standard-issue tactical boots. "How many sets?" Krell asked. "Difficult to determine precisely. At least 5 distinct patterns." The team continued deeper into the station, providing regular updates as they navigated through abandoned processing centers and storage facilities. The station's emergency lighting provided minimal illumination, casting long shadows through corridors that hadn't seen maintenance in decades. Approaching Central Control Hub, Vex reported 20 minutes later. "Energy signatures strongest here. Proceeding with caution." Krell and Rourke monitored the feed from the shuttle, watching through the team's visual sensors as they approached the sealed doors of the control center. "No visible security measures," Vex noted. "Bypassing lock system now." Her specialized appendages interfaced with the ancient control panel, bypassing the security protocols with practiced ease. The doors slid open with a mechanical groan, revealing the darkened control center beyond. "Entering now. Visibility limited." Switching to thermal imaging. The feed changed, highlighting the room in false colors that represented heat signatures. The control consoles glowed faintly with residual power, but there were no signs of living occupants. Room appears empty, Vex reported, moving cautiously between the workstations. Wait, detecting a small energy source beneath the main console. Investigating. Crow watched as Vex approached the console, her appendages already extending to examine the device. I believe this is. The communication cut off abruptly. The visual feed dissolved into static. Vex? Report. Crow barked into the communicator. Alpha Team, respond immediately. Nothing but silence answered him. What happened? One of the younger mercenaries asked, voice tight with sudden tension. Unknown, Crow replied tersely. Could be equipment failure, signal jamming, or... He didn't need to complete the sentence. Everyone understood the alternative. Beta Team, deploy now, Crow ordered. Full combat readiness. Find Alpha Team and secure that device. Rourke led 11 heavily armed mercenaries into the station, their weapons charged and sensors at maximum sensitivity. Crow monitored their progress from the shuttle, ready to deploy with Gamma Team if necessary. No signs of conflict at the entry point, Rourke reported, following Alpha Team's path to the control center. The tension mounted as Beta Team proceeded deeper into the station, following the same route Alpha Team had taken minutes earlier. Everything appeared exactly as Vex had reported. Abandoned corridors, minimal emergency lighting, undisturbed dust except for footprints. Something's wrong, Crow muttered to himself. If Alpha Team had been ambushed, there should be signs of struggle, weapon discharges, or blood. The complete absence of evidence was more disturbing than any battlefield he'd encountered. Approaching the control center, Rourke announced. Door is open as reported. Proceeding with caution. Crow watched through Rourke's visual feed as the android led the team into the control center, weapons sweeping across the room in practice formation. Control center secure, but no sign of Alpha Team, Rourke reported. Wait, found something. The feed shifted as Rourke approached a storage closet near the back of the room. The door slid open to reveal Alpha Team's equipment. Cloaking devices, weapons, communication gear, nearly arranged on the shelves. No damage, no signs of struggle. Just abandoned. Where are they? One of Beta Team whispered, the audio pickup barely registering his voice. Spread out, Rourke ordered. Search the adjacent rooms. Maintain communication at all times. As Beta Team dispersed to search the surrounding areas, the first anomalies began to occur. The emergency lighting, which had maintained a constant dim glow, began to flicker in irregular patterns. Not the random fluctuations of failing systems, but rhythmic sequences that almost seemed intentional. Central, are you seeing this? Rourke asked, his sensors tracking the light patterns. Affirmative, Crow replied. Could be power fluctuations, or... A series of mechanical clanks echoed through the station, followed by the sound of distant doors opening and closing. Proximity sensors detecting movement in multiple sectors. One of Beta Team reported, her insectoid antennae twitching with increased sensitivity, but cannot pinpoint sources. Stay together, Rourke commanded. Form defensive perimeter around the control center. The team regrouped, taking defensive positions around the central hub. Minutes passed in tense silence, broken only by the continued sounds of mechanical movements throughout the station. Footsteps with no visible source, voices that seemed to echo from everywhere and nowhere, doors opening and closing in distant corridors. They're toying with us, Rourke realized aloud. Psychological warfare. As if in response to his observation, a cascade of system failures began throughout the section. Ventilation fans accelerated to maximum speed, creating a disorienting howl. Maintenance panels along the walls slid open, exposing circuitry and conduits. Emergency bulkheads began to close and open in seemingly random sequences. The station itself is being used against us, Crow concluded, watching the chaos unfold through the team's feeds. Rourke, find that device and extract immediately. Understood. Moving to. A deafening mechanical groan interrupted him as the floor beneath two of Beta Team suddenly retracted, dropping them into a cargo chute before they could react. Their startled cries faded as they plummeted into the lower levels. "Jackal and Cirrus are down," another team member shouted. "Stay focused," Roar commanded. "Form pairs, back-to-back formation." The remaining members of Beta Team paired off, covering each other's blind spots as they tried to navigate the increasingly hostile environment. The station's systems continued to malfunction in ways that seemed deliberately orchestrated to separate and disorient them. Coolant gas, harmless but visually obscuring, sprayed from ceiling vents, creating dense fog banks that limited visibility to mere inches. Gravity plating fluctuated in some sections, causing mercenaries to suddenly float helplessly before being slammed back to the floor. One pair, attempting to reach a maintenance corridor, found themselves trapped when blast doors on both sides suddenly sealed, locking them in a section where the atmospheric controls began steadily decreasing the oxygen level. "This is coordinated," Crow realized with growing dread. "Gamma Team, prepare for immediate deployment. Beta Team needs reinforcement." But before Gamma could launch, the situation deteriorated further. The paired mercenaries were being systematically isolated and neutralized without a single shot being fired. A Mantodine scout suddenly found himself ensnared in a cargo net that dropped from a ceiling panel, the material specifically chosen to resist his species' natural cutting appendages. Two others were incapacitated when maintenance drones, reprogrammed for offensive operations, emerged from wall panels and sprayed them with quick-hardening industrial adhesive normally used for hull repairs. Another fell victim to a cleverly modified subsonic emitter that exploited his species' sensitive auditory system, rendering him unconscious, without affecting his teammates. Through it all, the human operatives remained virtually invisible, fleeting shadows at the edge of vision, gone before weapons could target them. The few glimpses captured on visual feeds showed figures moving with disturbing efficiency, their expressions calm and methodical as they systematically dismantled Kral's elite force. Within 20 minutes of entering the station, Beta Team was reduced to Rourke and two others, desperately trying to reach the control center where they detected the energy signature of what they believed to be the QLD. "Captain, we can't hold position," Rourke reported, his mechanical voice betraying no emotion despite the dire circumstances. "Requesting new strategy." Kral's mind raced through scenarios, none of them favorable. Half his force had been neutralized without inflicting a single casualty on the enemy. The humans were using the station itself as a weapon, demonstrating an intimate knowledge of its systems that suggested extensive preparation. His instincts screamed retreat, but 5 million credits and his reputation hung in the balance. More importantly, he needed to recover his people, or at least determine their fate. "New plan," Kral decided. "Full assault. We breach with everything we have, secure the device, and extract immediately." He turned to Gamma Team, his remaining 7 operatives. "We're going in hot. Maximum firepower. Destroy any obstacles between us and the control center. No subtlety, no finesse. We blast a path straight through." Minutes later, Kral led Gamma Team through the main entrance, bypassing the stealthy approach Alpha had used. Heavy weapons fire tore through internal bulkheads and sealed doors, creating a direct path toward the central hub where Rourke and his remaining teammates were holding position. The station's automated defense systems activated in response. Ancient security turrets emerging from ceiling panels, maintenance robots repurposed with improvised weapons, fire suppression systems creating zones of impenetrable foam. But unlike the precision tactics used against Alpha and Beta teams, these responses seemed hasty, reactive rather than proactive. They didn't expect a frontal assault, Kral realized as his team tore through the defensive measures. "We've disrupted their strategy." The momentary advantage didn't last long. As Gamma Team pushed deeper into the station, the human response evolved. The automated defenses began operating in coordinated patterns, channeling the mercenaries toward predetermined kill zones where multiple systems would activate simultaneously. Cargo handling equipment, massive mechanical arms designed to move containers, swung with devastating force through corridors. Laser cutting tools used for processing materials fired in synchronized patterns, creating lethal grids of energy that required split-second timing to navigate. Still, Kral's team pressed forward, their superior firepower and determination slowly gaining ground. For the first time, they caught brief glimpses of their adversaries, human figures moving with startling speed and coordination, communicating through hand signals and executing complex maneuvers without hesitation. They're falling back to the control center, Kral observed, noting the pattern of resistance. They're protecting the device. Gamma Team finally linked up with Rourke and his remaining operatives outside the control center. The combined force prepared for a final push to secure their objective. Status report, Kral demanded. Functioning at 78% optimal capacity, Rourke replied, indicating damage to several of his external systems. Weapon systems intact. The two with me are injured, but combat capable. Kral nodded grimly. The device is in there, along with our opposition. We hit them with everything we have, secure the QLD, and extract immediately. No prisoners, no complications. The assault on the control center was devastating. Concentrated weapons fire obliterated the reinforced doors, and the mercenaries poured through the opening with practiced precision, covering all angles of fire as they secured the room. To their surprise, the control center appeared empty. Secure the perimeter, Kral ordered, moving cautiously toward the main console where the energy signature was strongest. They're here somewhere. As if on cue, the station's power grid surged dramatically. Emergency lighting flared to full brightness for the first time, revealing the true state of the control center and the trap they'd walked into. Human operatives, using advanced tactical positioning and environmental camouflage, had been present the entire time. 5 figures in matte black combat gear, their movements so precisely calculated they had escaped even the mercenaries' enhanced sensory systems. Before Kral could shout a warning, the humans moved with synchronized precision. Non-lethal weaponry designed specifically to target each species. Vulnerabilities deployed simultaneously. Electromagnetic pulses calibrated to disrupt Rourke's systems. Neurological disruptors tuned to Saurian brain patterns targeting Kral. Specialized compounds that hardened on contact with specific exoskeletal compositions immobilizing others. The attack was over in seconds. Only Kral and Rourke remained partially functional. Kral fighting through the neurological disruption through sheer willpower, Rourke operating on backup systems after the primary ones were overloaded. A human figure stepped forward, a woman with close-cropped dark hair and eyes that conveyed absolute authority. Her tactical gear bore no insignia or identifying markers, but her posture and the deference shown by the others marked her as the leader. Captain Kral, she addressed him directly, her voice calm and professional. I am Captain Anya Sharma. I prefer this didn't end with more unnecessary casualties. Kral's vision swam from the effects of the neural disruptor, but he kept his weapon aimed at the human. What have you done with my people? They're alive and unharmed, Sharma replied. Contained in secure locations throughout the station. Unlike many of your previous employers, we don't execute prisoners. The QLD, Kral managed, his voice rough with effort. Hand it over, and we leave. A flicker of something, perhaps sadness, perhaps pity, crossed Sharma's face. I'm afraid Omnicorp hasn't been entirely truthful with you, Captain. She gestured to another human, who approached carrying a small cylindrical device. This isn't a quantum locator device. It's a biological decryption key, the control mechanism for a genetically targeted bioweapon developed by Omnicorp's Black Research Division. The human activated a holographic display, showing molecular structures and genetic sequences. This weapon can be programmed to target specific genetic markers, wiping out entire species while leaving others completely unaffected. A custom-designed extinction-level event in a container. Kral's blood ran cold as he processed the implications. Planet killer, he whispered, using the mercenary slang for weapons of mass destruction. Precisely, Sharma confirmed. My team is part of a covert multi-species task force that tracks and neutralizes extinction-level threats. We intercepted Omnicorp's communications about the BDK and secured it before it could be activated or sold to interested parties. Rourke, his systems partially recovered, spoke up. If what you say is true, why would Omnicorp risk exposing such a program by hiring mercenaries to retrieve it? Because they intended for this station to be destroyed, along with everyone in it, a new voice answered. All eyes turned to Zach, the Rithlian information specialist, who stepped through the shattered doorway, his neural interface device glowing as he processed incoming data. Captain, I've been monitoring Omnicorp's communications, Zach explained. They just initiated a remote destruct sequence targeting this station's power core. They're covering their tracks. As if to confirm his words, alarm klaxons suddenly blared throughout the station. Emergency lighting shifted to pulsing red, and automated announcements began warning of an imminent reactor core breach. Reactor overload initiated. Core containment failing. Catastrophic breach imminent. All personnel evacuate immediately. Sharma's team immediately shifted priorities, two of them rushing to auxiliary control panels while maintaining weapons on the mercenaries. How long? Sharma demanded. 17 minutes until critical mass. One of her team replied after analyzing the systems. They've locked out the primary containment protocols. We're attempting to bypass. Krall found himself in an impossible situation. His mission had collapsed into a nightmare scenario. Half his team incapacitated, a planet-killer weapon that no mercenary group would touch, and now a reactor meltdown that would vaporize the entire asteroid and everyone on it. If what you say is true, Krall addressed Sharma, fighting through the lingering effects of the neural disruptor, then we have a common interest in survival. Sharma studied him for a moment, her tactical assessment almost palpable. Your expertise with this station's systems could prove useful. Are you offering assistance? I'm offering a truce, Krall clarified. We help you stop the meltdown, you release my people, and we all leave this place alive. The weapon is yours. I want nothing to do with it. For the first time, genuine emotion showed on Sharma's face, respect, however grudging. Agreed. Release him. She ordered one of her team, who deactivated the neurological disruptor affecting Krall. As the effects faded, Krall accessed his tactical database. Rourke, transfer the station schematics we compiled to their systems. The android complied, interfacing with the control console to share the detailed analysis they had prepared. Before the mission, the main reactor control circuits are hardwired to prevent remote tampering, Krall explained, indicating specific sections on the displayed schematics. But there's a maintenance access tunnel that bypasses the primary conduits. If we can reach the physical control rods, we might be able to manually insert them and slow the reaction enough to establish secondary containment. Sharma nodded sharply. Torres, Phillips, continue working on the electronic override. Krall, Rourke, and I will attempt the manual intervention. The rest of you prepare our people and the mercenaries for emergency evacuation. The next 15 minutes were a desperate race against time. Krall, Rourke, and Sharma navigated through increasingly unstable sections of the station, fighting against rising temperatures and radiation levels to reach the reactor control chamber. The maintenance tunnel was barely large enough for Rourke's frame, forcing the android to damage some of his external components to squeeze through. Emergency bulkheads had to be forced open manually as power fluctuations caused systems throughout the station to fail randomly. When they finally reached the control rod chamber, the situation appeared hopeless. The automated systems had completely retracted the control rods, and the manual override had been physically damaged, deliberately sabotaged as part of Omnicorp's destruct sequence. We can't reinsert them conventionally, Rourke analyzed, his sensors scanning the mechanisms. The drive system is completely severed. Krall examined the failing containment field surrounding the reactor core. Energy patterns fluctuated wildly as the reaction accelerated toward critical mass. What if we don't need to insert them properly, he suggested. We just need to get enough neutron-absorbing material into the reaction to slow it down until your people can re-establish secondary containment. Sharma immediately grasped his meaning. The control rods themselves contain enough boron carbide to absorb the excess neutrons if we can get them positioned correctly. Exactly, Krall confirmed. but we need to manually place them right inside the containment field. The radiation would be fatal to organic life forms, Rourke observed. Yes, Kral agreed, looking meaningfully at the android. Fatal to organic life forms. Rourke's optical sensors flickered as he processed the implication. My systems can withstand the radiation long enough to position the rods. However, the exposure will likely cause irreparable damage to my neural processors. No, Sharma interrupted. We have another option. She activated her communication device. Phillips, status on the secondary containment protocols. We've bypassed part of the lockout, came the response. We can re-establish containment at 40% efficiency if the reaction rate drops below threshold gamma. That's enough, Sharma decided. She turned to Kral and Rourke. If your android can position just 2 of the control rods, that should reduce the reaction rate enough for our override to work. 2 rods would limit the exposure, Rourke calculated. My systems might survive with only partial damage. Kral nodded grimly. Do it. What followed was a precisely coordinated effort that demonstrated why humans were so feared on the battlefield. Sharma directed operations with calm, decisive commands, anticipating problems before they arose and adapting instantly when unexpected complications developed. Rourke entered the containment field, his systems immediately registering the intense radiation. The android moved with deliberate precision, positioning the massive control rods in the exact locations needed to moderate the runaway reaction. Meanwhile, Sharma and Kral worked to stabilize the remaining systems, preventing additional cascading failures that could have rendered their efforts useless. With less than 2 minutes remaining before catastrophic breach, Phillips and Torres activated their partial override, re-establishing secondary containment protocols. The reactor's energy output began to stabilize, the countdown to critical mass suspended as emergency cooling systems came back online. Rourke emerged from the containment field, his external plating discolored from radiation exposure, several systems operating at reduced capacity. But the android still functioned, a testament to the advanced engineering of his construction. Reactors stabilized, came the report from the control center. We've established sufficient containment to prevent breach. The station is secure. The journey back through the station was conducted in a strange, exhausted truce. Kral's surviving mercenaries had been gathered in the main docking bay along with their equipment. Many showed signs of non-lethal neutralization, temporary paralysis, sensory disruption, neural sedation. But as Sharma had promised, none had been permanently harmed. As they prepared to depart, Sharma approached Kral. She handed him a small data crystal, evidence of Omnicorp's bioweapon program in their attempt to eliminate all witnesses, she explained. Make sure they understand that we know what they were planning. Kral accepted the crystal, studying the human commander. Why give me this? Why not kill us all and simplify your operation? Sharma's expression remained neutral, but her eyes revealed complexity beyond her professional demeanor. Because we don't fight for credits or glory, Captain. We fight because someone has to stand between civilization and extinction. She glanced at her team, efficiently preparing their own departure. We neutralized your forces because you were obstacles to our mission, not because we wanted you dead. Remember that distinction. Kral nodded slowly. And the next time our paths cross? Let's hope they don't, Sharma replied. But if Omnicorp or anyone else sends you after humans again. She left the sentence unfinished, her meaning clear. One more thing, she added, handing him a small device. Activation codes for your crew members' stasis chambers. They'll be released once you're safely away from the station. As the Razor's Edge departed from asteroid Z-99, Kral stood on the bridge, watching the decrepit station recede into the darkness. Beside him, Rourke ran continuous diagnostics on his radiation damage systems. Will you fulfill the contingency clause in our contract? The android inquired. Omnicorp will pay 20% for confirmation of mission failure due to technical complications. Kral's scaled fingers clutched the data Crystal Sharma had given him. No, he decided after a moment's contemplation. We're going to sever all ties with Omnicorp. They tried to atomize us along with their dirty secrets. A prudent decision, Rourke agreed, his voice processor glitching slightly from radiation damage. My probability models suggest they would attempt to eliminate us regardless, once we reported back. Crow moved to the command chair, his reptilian features set in a grim expression. Set course for the Carthan Nebula. We need time to repair, recover, and reconsider our operational parameters. And the crew? Rourke asked. They'll receive their standard mission completion bonuses from our reserves, Crow replied. I won't have them suffer financially for this disaster. 6 standard months later, Crow and Rourke sat at a corner table in the Void's Edge, a notorious gathering place for mercenaries, bounty hunters, and other combat professionals on the fringes of civilized space. The establishment existed in the legal gray area of a disputed border region, allowing all manner of species and factions to mingle without immediate hostility. Crow, noticeably thinner and with scales that had lost some of their luster, nursed a glass of Saurian firebrandy. Beside him, Rourke's frame showed the evidence of extensive repairs, mismatched plating and slightly asymmetrical optical sensors revealing the difficulty in sourcing proper replacement parts. Their conversation halted as a commotion erupted at the bar. A towering Crexian war chief, flanked by several lieutenants, was addressing the gathered mercenaries. The payment is 15 million universal credits, the Crexian announced, his voice carrying easily through the establishment. Corsica Research Division requires a specialized strike team to secure a research facility and retrieve prototype technology. Target is a human installation on Helios 7. A ripple of interest moved through the crowd. 15 million credits was an astronomical sum, enough to purchase a small fleet of combat vessels or retire in luxury on most civilized worlds. The Crexian continued outlining the mission parameters, describing the facility defenses, estimated opposition, and extraction protocols. Several mercenary leaders began signaling their interest, negotiating terms and conditions for what promised to be the most lucrative contract available in the sector. Crow remained silent, watching the proceedings with narrowed eyes. When one particularly eager group approached the Crexian to finalize terms, he finally stood, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. The room quieted as Crow moved toward the central table, his reputation ensuring he received immediate attention. He placed a small holographic projector on the table and activated it without speaking. The image that appeared showed molecular structures and genetic sequences, data from the crystal Sharma had provided. Additional files opened automatically, displaying communications logs, research protocols, and finally, footage from the station's security systems showing Omnicorp's attempted destruction of Z-99 and everyone aboard. Corsica Research Division is a subsidiary of Omnicorp, Crow stated, his voice carrying easily through the now-silent establishment. What they're calling prototype technology is almost certainly another bioweapon. And once you've retrieved it, they'll ensure there are no witnesses. The Crexian war chief bristled. These are baseless accusations from a failed mercenary trying to undermine competitors. Crow's secondary eyelids flicked slowly, a gesture of contemptuous dismissal among Saurians. I led Crow's Reapers for 37 standard years. We completed contracts that killed entire assault teams. We toppled governments and breached impenetrable defenses. We earned our reputation through blood and fire. He jabbed a clawed finger at the holographic display. And yet we were systematically dismantled by a human response team without a single casualty on their side. Your incompetence is not our concern, one of the other mercenary leaders scoffed. Crow turned to face the speaker, a young Centurion commander whose chrome-plated exoskeleton marked him as relatively inexperienced despite his bravado. 6 humans, Crow said quietly. Not an elite military unit or specialized combat force. A small team of humans defending something they believed in. They didn't just defeat us. They took us apart with surgical precision. They could have killed us all and chose not to. Remember that distinction. He turned back to the gathered crowd. You've all heard the stories about Deathworlders. You've dismissed them as exaggerations, myths created to explain failures by inferior operatives. I thought the same. Kral's voice dropped lower, forcing everyone to lean in. They don't fight for credits or glory. They fight like it's the end of everything, and they're the last wall standing. They don't kill you because they're angry. They neutralize you because you're in the way. A heavy silence fell over the establishment. Many of the younger mercenaries still showed skepticism, but the veterans, those who had survived long enough to recognize survival wisdom when they heard it, were visibly reconsidering. The Crexian war chief growled in frustration. Is anyone here professional enough to accept this contract, or has the great Kral frightened you all with bedtime stories? Rourke, who had remained seated during Kral's address, finally stood and approached the table. The android's movement had a slight asymmetry, evidence of systems still not fully repaired after the radiation exposure. I have served in 17 major conflicts across 9 sectors, the android stated, his mechanical voice carrying no emotion, yet somehow conveying absolute conviction. I have fought alongside and against nearly every spacefaring species. I have accumulated 49,273 hours of direct combat experience. Rourke's damaged optical sensors fixed on the Crexian. In all that time, only humans have demonstrated the capacity to treat combat as a problem to be solved rather than a contest to be won. They do not fight according to doctrine or honor. They identify weaknesses and exploit them without hesitation or remorse. The android placed a metallic hand on Kral's shoulder. We are not afraid of death. We are afraid of futility. This contract is suicide, and the payment is irrelevant because you will never collect it. The Centurion commander who had spoken earlier shifted uncomfortably. Even if what you say is true, 15 million credits will not purchase replacements for your specialized neural tissue when human-designed electromagnetic pulses fry your synaptic pathways, Kral interrupted. Will not restore your reputation when your entire team disappears without explanation. Will not comfort whatever family you leave behind when Omnicorp ensures your silence. He deactivated the holographic projector and pocketed it. I've said my piece. Accept the contract or don't. It's your decision. But know this, when Deathworlders arrive, even veteran killers like us run. One by one, the mercenary leaders withdrew their interest. The Crexian war chief, facing the collapse of his recruitment effort, stormed out with his lieutenants, hurling threats and insults that fell on indifferent ears. As the crowd dispersed, a lone figure approached Kral and Rourke's table. A human woman wearing simple civilian attire that nonetheless failed to disguise her military bearing. She slid into the vacant seat across from them without invitation. Captain Sharma sends her regards, the woman said quietly. Kral tensed momentarily, then relaxed with a resigned sigh. I should have known she'd have operatives watching that corporation. The woman smiled slightly. We monitor several organizations developing extinction-level technologies. Your intervention tonight was appreciated. I didn't do it for you, Kral growled. No, she agreed. You did it because you're a professional who respects legitimate threats. She placed a small data chip on the table. Consider this a professional courtesy. Omnicorp has placed bounties on both of you, classified contracts through 3 different shell corporations. Rourke's processors whirred as he assimilated this information. Our operational security has been compromised. Unfortunately, the woman confirmed. This chip contains new identities, account transfers, and transportation arrangements to a sector outside their immediate influence. Captain Sharma felt you earned at least a fighting chance. Kral stared at the chip, his reptilian features unreadable. Why would she help us? The woman stood to leave. Because we don't fight for credits or glory, Captain. Sometimes that means eliminating threats. Sometimes it means preserving potential allies. She nodded respectfully to them both. Safe travels. After she departed, Kral and Rourke sat in contemplative silence, the untouched data chip between them. What now, Captain? Rourke finally asked. Kral's scaled hand closed around the chip. Now we adapt. Isn't that what we learned from them? We evolve or we die. The android's damaged optical sensors flickered, the mechanical equivalent of thoughtful consideration. The humans have a saying, The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Perhaps, Kral agreed, pocketing the chip. Or perhaps they simply recognize that the galaxy is dangerous enough without professionals killing each other unnecessarily. He drained the last of his fire brandy and stood. Come, old friend. Let's see what new identity Captain Sharma has arranged for a retired Saurian mercenary and his mechanical companion. As they moved toward the exit, conversations throughout the establishment hushed momentarily. Mercenaries, bounty hunters, and killers of all species watched the legendary Kral depart, not in glory or triumph, but in quiet acknowledgement of forces beyond even his considerable abilities. The stories would spread, as stories always do in such places. They would grow in the telling, becoming exaggerated warnings or dismissed as the excuses of a failed commander. But among the veterans, those who had survived long enough to develop the instinct for true danger, the message would resonate. When Deathworlders arrive, even veteran killers run.